Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Female Filmmakers Fuse with Alexa Polar, only on LA Talk Radio.
This is Female Filmmakers Fuse. I'm your host, Alexa Polar. I have my co-host here today, Robin Pabello.
Hello.
Robin sounds so cheery right now. She's crocheting. Is that what you're doing? You're crocheting?
Yes. Why are you telling everybody?
Because it looks interesting. Real quick, where can people find us, Robin?
They can go to any of their favorite podcast stations, or I don't even know if that's the way you say that.
So you can find us iTunes, Apple,
Google Play,
Podcast, Google Play, correct. And we also post the shows on YouTube after we're done here, so you can always find it there afterwards, and that's a great way to share it on social media.
Yeah, the problem is like, how do you find us live?
Oh, find us live is good question, Robin, is latalkradio.com, and you can also download the LA Talk Radio app, and that's where you can hear us live, and we're on channel 2.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like trying to find that, and I couldn't find it live.
So it's LA Talk Radio. Today our guest is Cris Graves. Cris, did I say your name correctly?
I think so. It's Cris Graves, like Tombstones.
Yeah.
A little morbid, but I like it.
I like it too. Very cool. And you're originally from where? Are you based here in LA? Because right now I know you're in Kentucky.
Yeah, right now I'm in Kentucky. I live in Los Angeles right now, and I've lived there since 1996. But I actually grew up in Mexico City.
Okay.
I was moved there by my family when I was 1.
Okay.
I didn't have much of a choice.
No.
And I didn't come back to the U.S. till I was 19.
Okay.
To live.
Gotcha. Very cool. And you're a director, you're a producer, and you also edit, correct?
Yes, and I write as well.
And you write as well. So a lot of and it's great because you're an independent filmmaker. You've got your own projects going on, but at the same time you have worked on some known projects out there that are been televised or whatnot, correct? Like that Amazing Race.
Yeah. So when I first moved to LA, I moved to be a writer-director. Mm-hmm. And it was the mid-'90s, and I think everyone's kind of read what that climate was like for women.
Right. Right.
Trying to do that.
Right.
I don't necessarily need to get into all that, but
right. That's
pretty much what I got caught up in.
Gotcha.
And I wound up getting a job on a reality show. We didn't quite know what they were. It wasn't a huge genre yet, right?
Okay.
And so I was working for a company that sold a show called Temptation Island. And I wound up working on it as a production coordinator. It was my bump up from PA to something else. And when I came home, I couldn't get hired by anything scripted because that world saw reality as a threat.
Right.
So the minute you had a credit from it, you basically, and none of us knew that at the time, that we're kind of just trying to get work, right?
Right.
You kind of realized it when you got home after having taken one of those shows. So I ended up going up that ladder and becoming a producer. And I worked on The Amazing Race for many seasons, which people probably know that show. So I did season 3 through 13 of that show. Nice. And various other fairly well-known reality shows. Although I
and all that, yeah.
I started maybe I would say 8 years ago, kind of really curating what I take and going more towards kind of doc-based stuff. Right now, I'm working for a true crime doc for Oxygen. I can't really talk much about it, but because of confidentiality agreements that are being signed and stuff. But I'm basically producing 2 of the episodes and finding, securing really sensitive interviews to do, and then working with the director over the visuals that we'll shoot to go with those interviews. So it's pretty exciting and pretty fun.
Nice.
And still in the wheelhouse of what I really want to do. And the thing is when you do doc and to some extent reality, depending on what it is, like some of the more, I did a lot of adventure driven stuff. I worked a season on Dead Least Catch. I worked a season on Whale Wars. I was on a boat for 94 days. Okay. But all of that informs my storytelling.
Okay.
And it all gives me stuff to pull from when I write or direct.
How was it? Because I know like 94 days, you must have, because I've been on a cruise ship and it wasn't anywhere near that. And getting off the cruise ship, I felt like I was swaying. So how was it getting off that after 94 days?
Well, okay, so it wasn't a cruise ship. All right, we'll start with that. The boat I was on was called the Bob Barker because Bob Barker gave Sea Shepherd Society $5 million, and they bought this boat from this kind of crooked Ghanaian businessman.
Okay.
And what the guy was doing, what was interesting was it was a repurposed Norwegian whaling vessel that was now being used to save whales, which I always found really kind of cool that that's what happened to this boat, you know?
Right.
And the Ghanaian businessman had reworked the innards of this boat and had given it this gigantic capacity of fuel. So usually boats have to come in after a month of being out to sea. This one didn't. It had 3 months worth of fuel capacity. And what he would do is he would park it in the bay, you know, off the coast of Ghana. And people who wanted to pay cheaper prices for gas for their boat, they would sidle up to it and buy from him. That's why I say it was crooked.
Gotcha.
But so now the Sea Shepherds own it, and they repurposed it. And the reason they really needed that boat was because if they were on the ass of the, I'm sorry if I said I don't know if I'm allowed to.
You're okay. You're okay.
So anyway, but if we were on the butt of the Nishimaru, which is the factory vessel of the whaling fleet, that's where they bring the whales and they deliver them, the harpoon vessels, and then they get processed in that ship. Now, if you're on its butt, they can't deliver, so there's no reason for them to kill whales because they can't deliver them and they'll just go bad.
Okay.
So that's the best possible place to be for the Sea Shepherds. And that boat allowed them to, if they found that boat, it allowed them to stay on the boat's butt the entire season.
Nice.
And that's what we did, in fact, my season. And that's why we wound up literally at sea for 94 days without seeing land. We saw the Antarctic ice shelf, but we didn't see colors like green for 94 days.
That's still
which was really spectacularly weird when we got to land. How vibrant certain colors that we hadn't really had been exposed to when you get home.
Yeah.
It, to me, it's one of the shows I'm most proud to have worked on because and kind of nourishing as a human being, because you're with these kids who, and I call them kids because they were much younger than me, but they all have this mission, and they would have been there whether our cameras were there or not. And as a matter of fact, you had to earn their trust for them to even open up to you on camera, because they didn't really care what we were there for. They were there on a mission to save these beautiful, beautiful creatures, you know. And it was just an honor to have been allowed to be there with me and my camera crew and my AP and really, you know, get to tell a really compelling and worthwhile story, which is what, I mean, if you're in this business, I think that's at the heart of what we all want, right? To tell compelling and worthwhile stories.
Absolutely. And that's great. Did you see while you were there, were there moments where there were some that were trying to go through with whales, with the whale?
We didn't. We almost got rammed. They were coming close to us, trying to get us to dissuade us from being there. I think we got on them so early that I don't know if it's to but for a while there, it was the record low of kills for whales.
Okay.
That season, and it was under 20. I want to say, I can't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Wow.
And we literally, so they kept going east. All right. Mm-hmm. And so we're cutting through the Ross Sea, which is this it sounds like a tiny little body of water, but it's gigantic, the Ross Sea. Mm-hmm. And we were heading for Drake Passage, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's the piece of water between South America and the Antarctic shelf.
Okay.
And it's a hugely turbulent piece of water. It's why the Panama Canal was built to begin with, so that ships would stop being lost at sea going around the Horn there.
Okay.
And traditionally, if you're going to go through Drake Passage, it's either 2 or 3 youngest members of the boat have to shave their head, or your ship comes into bad luck, because sea vessels are very superstitious. Okay. And my AP, who's a very good friend of mine, he's actually on the show I'm on now. He's a very good director in his own right, but he was only 20 at the time, and I had very specifically hired him because I knew he hadn't been exposed to any other shows.
Okay.
And I knew that this show was going to be different in all aspects, and I wanted him to not think of other ways of doing things, but to do it the way it needed to be done for that show. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, I've seen him blossom as a director and as a producer and as a lot of it I've started there, with A, getting to tell stories that were that compelling, but B, having to handle those kinds of conditions and still pull through, right? But he was terribly terrified that he'd have to shave his head, which was always funny to me. So what happened was, the captain was normally he was stationed at Galapagos for Sea Shepherd, so he knew some of the politicians in Argentina, and he wrote them a letter saying, hey, there's this boat with illegal whaling meat on it heading towards your waters. And Australia and New Zealand typically don't police their waters as much as Sea Shepherd would like them. So they were hoping that they would get a good response. And Chile, in fact, issued an order saying if a boat was found in their waters with illegally caught whaling meat, that they would be impounded. And the next day or two, I can't remember how long since that got released, that boat, literally, the Nishimaro, took a right-hand turn and started heading on a rum line to Japan. They turned away from going through Drake Passage.
Okay.
And a rum line, if you don't know sea speak, is a straight line, which is the long way home on our planet.
Okay.
So generally, boats will take a curved line to their destination because they're going along the curve of the Earth, and it's a shorter way.
Right.
But if you go straight, it's the long way home. And so part of why they were doing that was to punish us to a certain extent, because it was pretty inclement seas on the way up there.
Okay.
And anything they can do to put us in, because their boat's bigger, in inclement waters, they think that we'll turn away, that boat will turn away, and they never do. So you're sitting in 40-foot seas, but it's exciting, and it's, that's where the stories are to me, like compelling story. Like if you're willing to put yourself out there, you're going to come home with something extraordinary.
No, absolutely. And that's something I've never even thought of. And how did you come across that project?
It was funny. I have a friend who we sometimes partner on things. And at the time, he had found this couple who were disabled. He had broken his back rock climbing, so he was technically a quadriplegic. And she was born a double above the knee amputee. So she had no legs above the knee. Below the knee.
Right.
But she was a world-class record-holding Paralympic runner. She ran in the London Olympics for the Paralympic team. And he's a stand-up comedian. So it was kind of a funny couple, right? And we caught them right before they were going to get married. And we thought it'd be great because it would show these two very able-bodied, what people consider disabled people, right? When they're not. They might have their challenges, but they are certainly, in my estimation, not disabled. They are abled in every way. They just have challenge, Right. And they were very funny. And one of his jokes was that they were the poster children for oxymoron cereal because she was a legless runner and he was a stand-up comedian who can't stand up. Okay. And so we were in a pitch meeting. Oh no, you know what? It wasn't that show. Sorry. Anyway, but that is a show. We sold the pilot. Okay. Sorry. We sold the pilot, the Arable pilot, but they didn't pick up the show. TLC didn't pick up the show. Okay. And I think it's because they weren't brave enough. I think they were afraid of, which to me, such a huge audience out there for, and starved for seeing themselves represented. Mm-hmm. And I think they blew it. Yeah. But no, it was another show. Sorry. It was a show called Global Patrol. And it was this guy who was a Gold Shield New York City detective who was retired and was in private security. And he wanted to go around the world and kind of embed with different police forces around the world and see how they did their stuff. And I had gone to Colombia with him and a DP cameraman that I work with, although this was the first time we'd met, this particular project. But Michael's become quite a good friend since. But we're both kind of adventurous, and when we hear gunshots, we run towards them. We don't run away from them because we're stupid. And but we were with this guy and down in Colombia, and we shot with in the jungles where there's narco trafficking and all kinds of things that the army there chases after because it's different than here. Narcotics is the domain of the police force. In Colombia, it's the domain of the army. Right. And so anyway, so we did that and we shot this teaser, and then I, kind of Bill and I, worked with an editor, and we got this cool teaser. And so we were in with Liz Bronstein pitching this show to see if her company wanted to partner with us to get it sold to a network. And it was with my agent, not my it wasn't Bill's agent. And so we're sitting there, and my agent's in the room, and she says, we're looking for a producer. As we were leaving, she said to him, to my agent, we're looking for a producer for Whale Wars because they'd lost someone. And Rock turns and goes, well, Cris is available because I'd been unemployed for quite a few months. For whatever reason, I can't remember. And I go, yes, I am. And so I came in for an interview and they hired me. Nice. So that was like that's a happy accident. Yeah, it was a happy accident. And then we did end up partnering with that show, but then it didn't end up going anywhere. Oh, okay. But it's cool. That happens all the time. So. And you're in Kentucky now for a film festival for one of your own projects, correct? No. I'm in Kentucky working on a documentary. Oh, documentary. I'm sorry. No, but one of my shorts is in 3 different festivals this month. Okay, right. So I'm kind of excited. The first one's Moving Parts in LA, which is the 14th. The second one is Detroit She-Town Film Festival in Detroit, and so that'll be its first outside of LA screening. Okay. And that's on the 15th. And then it's in Lady Filmmakers, which happens on our screenings on the 27th. Okay, nice. And then I believe if you guys want me to say it, I think you guys just accepted me in yours. Correct. It's going to be in the Female Filmmakers Fuse Festival as well. So that's great. Yeah. And hopefully we get to meet you in person that day too. Oh, totally. Totally. But that's amazing. So you do these really great, compelling documentaries. You travel around the world. Which is, I know a lot of people that want to do that, and just film. So that's something that you're very fortunate that you're able to do. Oh, no, I cannot complain for the career I've had. Right. No. And like, I think things happen at their own time. Mm-hmm. So I think everything that I have done has made me a stronger narrative storyteller than I ever would have been if something had happened for me when I was 26 in 1996.
No, absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And it's got you, yeah, you're right. It's got you where you're at. No reason to complain at all. And I think it's amazing because, like I mentioned before, you're an independent filmmaker, but at the same time, you know how to work the system. You know where to go and get things pitched, which is not easy for a lot of people. It takes a lot of time to do that. And even when they're getting to that point, sometimes they don't know how to do that. What can you recommend to a filmmaker when they get stuck like that?
Here's the thing, because there's a couple, because I've had an agent. I don't right now. I'm actually not because my agents were primarily for reality stuff. And to be honest, every time I ended up getting to that point with a reality show, it's not where my heart is. My heart's always been in wanting to do what I'm doing with my short films and stuff right now. And my goal is to hopefully be directing a feature film in the next 2 years. That's kind of the goal I've set myself. And and in the last 3 years, I've got, I think it's 4 short films that I've done. So I have like a little portfolio of things that people can watch and go, okay, I see she has an eye, I see she has a storytelling, whatever. But as far as the other stuff, to pitch, at least in what I was working in, either you have to have an agent or you have to work your connections as friends. It's not easy to get to that point or to get into the room. And then it's a whole other talent once you're in the room.
Right.
You have to work on being confident when you walk in that room. They want what you have. That's how you have to, go in there with that singular vision that they're not doing you a favor, you're doing them a favor.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
So when and you gotta hustle. I mean, you gotta, and you have to have that passion to have, like don't just go in with everything, like any idea.
Right.
Make sure it's the one,
Right.
Because passion sells. Okay. That's how you get things sold, is showing passion for whatever it is. It could be the coffee cup on my table. If I sell you on that coffee cup and tell you that coffee cup is going to make that coffee is going to taste the best it's ever tasted because of that coffee cup, and I sell you on that, and I make you see that, you're going to buy it.
Right. That's true.
Or at least you're going to go, hey, here's some money to make a pilot. Right. Now prove yourself. And then you better be ready to prove yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the other thing is make sure you're ready. Because I know many people who've gotten, in a room, they've sold something, but they weren't ready.
Yeah. And
so it never went anywhere after, they got some money, or they got, because what they sold is not the product that was delivered, because they weren't ready to deliver that product.
Right.
Can you, for the listeners, can you just kind of explain to them what you mean in general?
In general, I mean, there's value in I have done almost every job on set, whether it's narrative or doc.
Okay.
And with doing that, you gain skill in all facets, whether it's art department or lighting or camera or, and I'm not a DP, but I understand camera and I've shot camera, and I work with DPs closely and I ask them questions. And what that does is, when you're on set, you can communicate with every department.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a room selling, you can communicate like you know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
And you're not just a writer who wrote something and thinks it can get done.
Right.
But you know it can get done because you have the skills to get it done.
Right.
But if you walk into that room and you've PA'd, right,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. I'm not deriding PAs at all. I PA'd for longer than I should have. Because I was good at it, because, that happens. You don't end up getting bumped up because they don't want to lose you, right?
Right.
But you might have this fantastic idea, unless you've surrounded yourself with people who know how to deliver that idea you have,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get yourself in over your head if you try to sell that idea before you're ready to actually deliver that idea. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know how to
No, that makes
put
sense.
it more, like, you have to me, like my shorts, when you see them, like I art directed that short you saw.
Mm-hmm.
There is no title for art director because I made all the props.
Okay.
I chose all the wardrobe, because I have meticulously built all of those skill sets throughout my years, because I believe it makes me a stronger storyteller and a stronger director, and it also makes me stronger in a room when I'm selling something.
So I think
because I can back my stuff up.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about when you say, like, if you're not ready to deliver, meaning you had enough pre-pro and you've done the research and you've put in the work to know that it's got legs to walk. Is that kind of clarifying?
That you've got a plan that's going to work when they say yes.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That you know that my budget is solid because I have worked on things before, and I've seen downfalls when people don't put, like the show I'm working on right now, which, the crew that's working on the show is not the crew that built that sold it. Okay.
Okay.
So the budget lacking in certain areas that we are trying to shift and make sure so that we can deliver the show that we know was sold.
Gotcha.
Right. And budget is a huge thing you need to understand. Because when you do sell to a company, they're going to take a percentage of it to, pay their gas bill and their lighting bill, and the executive needs his 10%, and, there's all this overhead. So you're best armed by understanding all the pieces if that is the world you want to go into, which is in TV is show running. I don't necessarily want to be a showrunner. I want to be a director.
Right.
But if you're talking about helping people understand, selling shows and all that stuff, I've just seen I've seen friends and other people, they've had a couple things under their belt and they're really good in a room and they sell something, and then the production end suffers, or the creative end suffers because they hadn't prepared them. Like they can't back it up.
Right.
With knowledge. So, especially because we're women, we get looked at harsher.
Right.
And as unfair as it is that we need to have everything buttoned up 3 times as much, it's just the reality right now.
Right.
It's terribly unfair that Wonder Woman had to succeed, because if it had failed, she would never get hired again to direct. Right? Whereas 50 men could have directed it failed, and they'd get Star Wars the next night.
That's true. Good point.
So that, to me, our success as women in this industry will start. The walls will start really coming down when we are being allowed to fail and still being given stuff to work on.
You make a very good point right there.
So if it's young women listening to this, and it's terribly unfair, but that's why I'm stressing, have be able to back up whatever it is you're trying to produce, whatever it is, you know, and don't stop creating. Like, I just did a short for $200.
Oh.
And it's my best work. You guys haven't seen it, but it's my best work as a director, because I haven't. I'm going to start putting it in the festivals, but it's my other the short that got in, which is called Bozo Nova for anyone who's listening. It's about a clown who's a gigolo. It's a comedy, but that one cost me $10,000 of my own money, and then I did an Indiegogo for $5,000 for the finishing funds. How did I get the other one done for $200? Because I'd done Bozo Nova and had something to show, a really great DP, who then came on for free, and a couple of my friends, and it was a small little thing, and it was really about showing that I could direct two people, and see too, because the scene was written. It's just a comedy about friends, but generally those things just go to white actors, and it starts with us. We need to be the change.
Right.
If you're the director, you need to be the change.
It's very true.
You need to make sure you're consciously hiring, or if it's friends, you know, I very specifically called a friend of mine. He's a young black man who's trying to become an AC, and they don't get tons of chances either. And I'm like, come work for me. This DP works a lot, and my friend who's coming in, who's doing the lighting design, is actually a working DP too. You impress them, you're going to start getting work.
That's true.
You know, but it's also about being inclusive across the board, whether it's women, men, whatever. It's, you know, look out for that stuff when you have the chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When it's your set, you're in charge. The change. Don't look for it anywhere else, because the studios aren't going to change on their own. They've proven that.
And you said you started here in LA in the industry like in the 90s, and with that being,
you were cutting out there.
I'm sorry. You said that you started here in LA in the 90s, correct? And
yeah.
So with that being
correct.
said, and with everything that's happened, without having to disclose too much, do you personally see that there is a change in the industry when it comes to female filmmakers?
This is what I'm feeling, okay? When I moved in the 90s, not only was it tough for women to get ahead because of the patriarchy that was going on.
Right.
It was tough because of other women.
It's, yeah.
Hands down, absolutely.
Huh? Yeah, and you would... And I have never played that game. And I played college sport. Like I played soccer and basketball through college. So it's not that I don't have a competitive streak in me,
mm-hmm.
but when it comes to that, when it comes to me being on a show and I'm, and there's another woman on the crew that's kind of your same level, and all of a sudden they start backstabbing you because they want to make sure everyone knows that they're the woman,
right?
That's the good one, right?
Right.
And that has happened to me dozens of times. I'm not going to, that's regardless. But part of that is because of the way my generation was raised,
right?
And I'm 40. I'm about to be 48 this month, and you were kind of taught that there was little chance, if any, for you to get a seat at the table. But if you had reached that and you've gotten that, then you'd better do everything to hold on to it.
Right.
At the detriment of anyone around you, even if they were female, right? And I've always, and I don't know if it's because of the way I was raised, and I mean, I have 4 brothers and an older sister who ruled all of us. I'm the sixth. And there, and I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but I've never had that idea. I always wanted to reach back.
Right.
And go, come with me. The door's kind of half open. Come on, how many of us can we get in, right?
Right.
And to me, the physical change will happen when 500 of us show up at that table, or however many thousand.
Right.
And go, okay, let's make
exactly.
this table bigger, guys, because we're all here. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
When it's one trickling in here or there, then the patriarchy thinks, well, no, look, we've got a woman at the table. What are you talking about?
Right.
You know,
right.
You're giving them license, right?
Right.
But I do feel a sense of that changing, of the female attitude of there's only one seat, it's mine. I do feel that there are, and I think that's where change is really starting to happen. There's, you know what, we need to work together, not against each other.
Yeah, and I think that
and
that's
I think
key.
it's a generational thing.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I think our generation's learning, like several people I know, I can sense a change in them that I didn't see, you know, a decade and a half ago.
Right.
You know, and that's change. And and when we become a cohesive team for each other, not for ourselves, but for each other, there's not going to be much that'll stop it. You know,
right?
Those men are not going to stop that. Period.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's you make a good point because that's true. I've experienced that myself as well, where it's not so much the men that stop, but the other women that stopped, and you're right. I do see that changing. You know, which is essential. You know, because we definitely do need that. It's about lifting each other up, and taking each other up with us, instead of pushing others down just because you want to make it to the top, thinking like I will be the one representing, because that's not how that works. We have to all work together. It's ironic because like in the news, like in the entertainment news, you had Louis C.K. that did a comeback, a quiet comeback, and got a standing ovation for it. And it wasn't until a couple of days later that some of the women that were in the audience spoke up and said it was super awkward and they didn't like it. And they said, but, you know, what are you going to do when you have these other people stand up and applaud him? And the ones that didn't, the majority were women. And he even made a joke about a rape whistle not being clean. And this, you know, it's kind of disgusting. And like what you kind of said, like men can fail. You just got to give them time for the comeback, you know, and that's what the thing is. He's testing the waters. Where's my comeback? When can I come back in? And it's the same thing with that, the Venice Film Festival the other day, where that, I don't even know who he is, because I read it somewhere where they said he's a D-list casting director, producer, whatever he is, an Italian gentleman. I'm being nice by calling him a gentleman. And he wore that shirt at the red carpet saying Harvey Weinstein is innocent, you know? And that was Guillermo del Toro that said, this isn't, it's not about controversy. It's not a PR thing. It's an issue. You know, and it's great that he said that, because it is an issue. Well,
no, and that's the thing is like it's like that part's not going to really start changing until men actually start standing up with the women.
Correct.
And actually start believing and really backing some of that stuff.
Yes.
Which is also an issue.
And
it is an issue.
If you're a female in this industry, you have experienced some degree of all of that.
Right.
Period.
Yes.
I would defy anyone to tell me that they haven't either seen it or experienced it themselves.
Absolutely. It's the issue is not just the men too. It's the women that cover up for the men that do it. Oh, they didn't mean it. Yeah. You don't know them the way I do.
Well,
He's just a friend.
Then there's the confusing stuff where what's her name? The woman who did the first woman who came out after Harvey did it herself to a young man.
Asia, I can't remember. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. You know, and so then it becomes, you know, this is going to be a long process to untangle, because it's not just entertainment, it's across the board.
Oh, across the board.
Societal, it's a cultural thing.
Absolutely.
And it's a globally cultural thing. And I grew up in one of the most chauvinist countries in the world, which is Mexico. Mm-hmm. You know, so to a certain extent, I was a little. You know, I come to the U.S. and I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as where I just came from, you know?
Right.
You know, like when I was younger,
Right.
But, I mean, even in college, I dodged a coach who wanted to come to my hotel room. And years later, I think about it, and I was just, something in me had an alarm at 19, and I didn't, he was knocking at my door, and I locked it. I wouldn't let him in.
Wow.
Those are, I shouldn't have those experiences, and no one should have those experiences. We should all be respecting each other.
Correct.
But it's this cultural thing that's being unwoven slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes when, a lot changes with youth, unfortunately,
mm-hmm.
And so because and I have people going, you should teach your daughters. I'm like, no. Daughters are being taught. A lot of them are. A lot of this is what you're teaching your son.
Correct.
And if you teach respect and you teach boundaries early, and you teach that emotional well-being is on both ends, then you're going to come out with a different outcome when they're adults.
Right.
When you're not showing kids, because see and say is huge.
Yep.
with youth, and what do they see in entertainment? What do they see in the news? What do they see? Again, it's a cultural thing that's being fought right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry that men feel picked on, but why don't you take a minute and sit down and think about the hundreds of years of how women have been feeling? Because what you're feeling right now is a fraction of that.
Right.
A minuscule fraction of that. So please take a minute and reflect on that and go, how do we make this better? Not how do I assert my maleness again?
It's interesting that you say that too. Because you said that you're producing, but then you also, you're also fulfilling what you want to do with writing and directing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a DP, non-union, and union AC, and so as of late, I've been more camera operating and DPing non-union stuff, and thankfully have producers that are like, hey, we really want to push you, and I was like, that's fantastic, can I hire other people that I'd like to bring them up? And they're usually people of color or female, whomever is qualified for the job, and then whoever is also a right fit for the job that we're doing content wise. And one of the directors that I work with, typical, and he's a jokester and I adore him. He's like typical white older dude, and he's just like, yeah, Robin, when can we do this? And he's always constantly, since before all this whole entire movement has happened, has always been on lookout for female DPs, and not that he's against male DPs, but just, up and coming.
Just trying to help.
Yeah, he's just been that guy, and I'm like, this is amazing, and so every opportunity, so it is something that's there in existence. It just depends on if they're given the opportunity to put out those hires. And I'm not, again, I know I've got tons of guy friends who are not in those categories, who have been super supportive. And I'm super supportive of them. To me, I get, people, yay, it's an all-female crew, all that stuff. I mean, yes, I'm all for it, but at the same time, what we really should be working towards is equality. Correct.
It's not about exclusion.
Exactly.
And I'm always a little reticent when I see things like that, or and I'm like, listen, that's great, it's awesome, but remember that this is not about exclusion. Because the minute you start doing that, you're doing the same thing that's happened to us.
Correct.
And then they're going to have a case, that we're doing the same thing.
Right. That's true.
And that's not my game.
Right.
My game is, a set is the happiest when you have, a group of people who is diverse and, has many women, has many men, has of all shapes, sizes, colors, ages, and you're all working towards one goal.
Right.
And that's equality to me, and it's not about exclusion.
No, absolutely. I feel like that's kind of the wrong fit or idea of it. I understand trying to make there be more people that are, you know, so that there are more women being exposed to these kind of opportunities and these jobs, which at the same time, you know, like I came up and I didn't have any, you know, female DPs to look up to because there weren't any that were publicized. Correct. Yeah, absolutely. But now, you know, like I came up originally as an electrician, you know, and I was, you know, and Rachel Morrison is blowing up, which is phenomenal. You know what I mean? And I knew her as an electrician and when she was just kind of getting her feet wet as well.
What's funny is when I moved to LA, because I have a degree, we didn't talk about this, but I have a Master of Fine Arts in Technical Theater. I could be working at the Met as a technical director if I wanted to.
Wow.
But again, to me, educating myself about certain things was always about a final goal that had nothing to do with that. Like the masters to me was proving something to some people because I was only the second female to have graduated from the University of Illinois with that degree at the time because of, again, a very male dominated, you know, and it probably still is, you know. I haven't looked at the stats in years, but I was helping to open a door at that university for other women to come up behind. And I know a couple did right after myself and another student graduated with that degree. And that always made me really proud. But so when I moved to LA, I had skills in electrician work and in scene design and in building scenery. And I tried to get into 728.
Yeah.
In 96, and they wouldn't take me.
No way.
Because I was a woman.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
So you know, so I have seen a lot of change.
Yeah. The growth has been good.
In the years that I've been here. And when I, just so you know, like I woke up about 5 years ago, kind of in a doldrum. And like I said, I can't complain about my career. That would be like the most insane thing for somebody, you know. Well, geez, Chris, you've worked and been to 85 countries, and you've got an Emmy, and you've got, you know, like, I'm not complaining about it, but it wasn't what I found myself doing was not what I have wanted to make film and tell stories since I was 8. Okay, my sister took me to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind in a movie theater in Mexico. There was only a couple showing it. And we left that theater, and she turned to me, and we're going down an escalator. It's like yesterday, okay? She turned to me, and I'm like 8, and she goes, "What did you think?" And we're all wise asses in my family, just so you know. And I said, "I want to do that." And she goes, "What? Be abducted?" Because she thought I was relating to the kid, right? Very funny. And I went, and somewhere in my little 8-year-old brain, I was like, "No, I want to make that." And I had figured out that Steven Spielberg. I mean, I didn't know his name when I was 8.
Right.
Really. The story, and had put it together, and had put it into moving images, and had transmitted it to me. And I was enthralled with that idea.
Wow.
Absolutely loved that idea. Started writing, I am not kidding you, the next day.
So since you were 8, you were determined to be who you are today, this filmmaker that you are today.
Well, yeah. And so 5 years ago, I wake up, and I've been doing this doc stuff. I've been doing whatever, but I haven't been writing or making. Now, in the 90s, I couldn't make a short. I mean, I could have, but I didn't have any money, okay? And in the 90s, you needed to shoot on film. You needed to have a friend at the lab. Yeah. You needed to have a friend who knew how to cut on a moviola. Yeah. You needed, a whole lot of shit going on, right?
Right.
And I think pretty much the only people making shorts were either people who had money or had gone to film school and they had given them the equipment to do it with, right?
Right.
So the world that people are growing up in now, I find so fantastic. And I find it so invigorating. And I find it so awesome that it's been democratized that you can, if you have the willingness like I did, I taught myself how to use, how to edit on Premiere. Now, mind you, I knew Avid to a certain extent and whatever because I have to make string outs for my job. But the skill to tell a story by cutting is a very specialized skill, especially comedy. And, to take that on at the age of 46 is either stupid or brilliant. I don't know which, but I did. Right?
It's brilliant. I'm going to go with the brilliant part.
Well, because I'm I sit down and I go, I don't have money to pay an editor, and I'm just going to not pay an editor.
Right.
So I who else do I have? I have me.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to do it. But so I wake up 5 years ago and I go, what the hell are you doing, Cris?
Right.
What are you doing? You did not come on this earth to just do what you're doing. And, you can do something about it now. You can buy a camera. And I went out and I bought a little Blackmagic pocket cam, and that's what that film is shot on. And I bought a speed booster, and it's shot on Zeiss lenses.
There you go.
And it looks beautiful,
Right.
I think.
No,
Yeah.
For
absolutely.
something shot on the Blackmagic pocket cam, right?
No, that's great.
Those are great.
So-
You spit out great images.
Yeah, but there again, I did some research, and I was like, okay, look at that dynamic range, look at that, So everything else I've done, I was in a position to go, how do I make this happen? And I make it happen because I know how to put all of those things into place, and I know where I need a friend to come in and help with, say, being the DP and the extra camera guy, or so my crews are generally very small because I only, at the moment, it's not that I don't want a giant crew. Don't get me wrong. Somebody gives me Star Wars, I'll direct the hell out of it. And I'll know how to speak to every single one of those people.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
you're doing what was fit for the project that you had at hand.
With the budget that you have at hand.
And to me, small budgets enable creativity.
Absolutely.
No one should ever look at a small budget as a negative.
No.
That is where you get to be your most creative self. I would do this when I was getting that theater degree in theater technology. I would be paired up with scene designers who were being told by their teachers, don't design with a budget in mind. And where I went to undergrad, that was not what they taught us.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
They always taught us, look at your budget and figure out the best way to make what your vision is.
Thank you.
And I was, so the graduate program was teaching something else, and I would look at them and I'd be like, you're not going to get this.
Right.
Now, what if this is really, really important to you? And I will figure out how to make that happen for you. But you need to tell me what is important. And like I had one of those guys that they had a visiting designer come in, and there was a play called The Kentucky Cycle, oddly enough that I'm sitting in Kentucky. And it's 9 one-acts that happen over, so it's 2 plays basically that are 9 one-acts altogether. Like, so you can watch part 1 and part 2 together, like as a 4-hour piece, or you can watch one piece and then come back the next night and watch the other one. And so it takes a family from, I want to say when the country was founded or whatever, through to modern time, right?
Okay.
So the set has a lot of changes, obviously.
Hey, Cris.
And we were in a black box.
Oh.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I'm good. It's just like the station here is wrapping this up because the next person has to come in.
I want to finish the story.
Let's do this. So I like how we talked about how don't let creativity, the budget, or anything infringe on your creativity, which is great. Really quickly, where can people find you?
My name is spelled without an H.
Okay.
So I've got a website called CrisGraves.com because it was still available. Because there's no H. So it's CrisGraves.com. And there's a link to email me there if you want. You can also, my short film is at bozonova.com, BOZONOVA.
Okay.
And you can find me on Facebook, or I'm part of Female Filmmakers as well,
Okay.
the group.
Right.
And you can look me up on IMDb if you want.
Absolutely.
See what I've done.
Yeah,
if you
for
have any
sure.
questions.
And then we want you back, especially when you're getting into that whole feature, because I feel that's going to be coming soon. Cris, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being our guest today. Robin, thanks for being here. Everyone have a very happy and safe Sunday.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much. And Robin, I hope you feel safe the hell out of whatever.
Thank you. You take care. I'll be in touch with you.
You're listening to Female Filmmakers Fuse with Alexa Polar, only on LA Talk Radio.